What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to Rapflix Radio. This is your host, Kyle Rapp. If this is the first time you're joining me, thank you so much. If you've listened to a couple by now, or you're binge listening to this a year back, I appreciate you. If you could do me one huge thing, if you haven't done it already, is to click that subscribe button on the podcast or the YouTube channel. From here on out next week, I'm going to be releasing 4 episodes a week, so Monday Momentum, little dose of motivation for you on your Mondays. Tuesday will be original content, Wednesdays will be interview, and Thursday is really a week in the life of an entrepreneur. And for me, this was a sense of accountability, and really it's to illustrate what a coach and entrepreneur goes through in their week, and someone who is currently building their company, not like Gary Vee, who you may feel too detached to because he's been at it for years, or Tom Bilyeu, who built $1 billion brand. Right now I'm in the trenches building, and may be super valuable for you to understand where I'm coming from. And from that, today we're going to cover how to handle struggles and setbacks and how to have a breakthrough rather than a breakdown. And to preface this episode, understand, I know it's hard. I really do. I know what I'm about to say seems a little out there, and like in the moment, if you're having a struggle and a setback, this is probably the last thing you think you need to hear, but it is absolutely something that we need to, me included, train ourselves to be better at. And really, to define a struggle and a setback is to understand that you're performing below your standard. Because to define a struggle or a setback, we have to have something to compare it to, correct? Like if we think we did well, if we think we won, we think we had success, we're also comparing that to this standard of excellence that we've set for ourselves. So understand that struggles and setbacks are self-identified. And when you say that you are living on the struggle bus, or that you're having one setback after another, you're now self-identifying with that word. And to struggle is to lack something. And when you self-perpetuate this ideology, you're really saying that you're lacking as a human being when you do it enough, really. And there's so many instances in my life where I've felt that way, that I know I can come and speak on this like very authentically and say that I've felt this, I've been through this, but it has helped me to reframe sort of the expectations A, I put on myself, and B, the expectations people put on me. Like what I'm now reframing is striving for perfection, not trying to be perfect. And I'm going to get into what the stark difference is between those two things. But really, I want to share a few examples of kind of struggles in my past and how I would reframe them today. And one example was back at Meadowbrook. There, probably day 3 into working there. Everything's brand new. A lot of distractions, a lot of getting used to things. And I was told to move this giant ass rock that was kind of close to the parking lot on the fountain. And I just completely forgot. I felt overwhelmed by all the information that was being thrown at me. I had moved 9.5 hours. These are reasons, not excuses. But at the end of the day, I forgot, and that's on me. So the next day I was approached and basically chewed out, and that particular individual basically treated me at a distance, and what I felt was negative for that next week. So I really cemented that into, wow, if I'm not perfect, then this individual is going to treat me like quote unquote bad for an extended period of time. I have to be perfect here. And like that is the opposite of anything that you anything that you need to be. Like, you're not going to be perfect. That's not the human condition. The human condition is to learn from our mistakes and to not make them quote unquote again, but to have that empathy and compassion. And that is something that I've learned when I have employees that will never be something I carry on, and I will do the exact opposite. We will diagnose that mistake, and we will get to the root of it, whatever that might be, and then we set the new standard and we move on, and it will not affect my relationships with anyone. Another example was last week. I had a great interview with Ben that's going to release, if you're listening to this when it releases, that'll come out tomorrow. If you're listening to this after that, it released on October 30th, and had a great day. And I screwed up one thing. In a social media image, I typed out acquire instead of inquire. And I just felt like absolute shit for about an hour or two. And my self-worth dipped, and really that was, again, me setting an expectation of being perfect. And you're going to make mistakes, and especially in this industry with the amount of content that's being put out and things like that, it's very easy to look at your content and want to be perfect with it when most people aren't going to notice if one thing's spelled wrong, even though I set an extremely high standard for myself for seeing that information and living up to an expectation. I may not always live up to that, and that's okay. Like, I'm striving to be perfect. I'm not trying to be perfect. Like, I'm putting my best foot forward every single time I hit record, I sit down to write, I sit down to coach, and this is probably take 15 of this. So, I'm striving to be perfect, but still putting things out there to the best of my ability for that day. And Seth Godin has an amazing quote. It's merely ship it. And it's you're creating artifacts. In your life, you are creating an artifact. And what an artifact is, it is the best representation of who you are that day with the current skill set and knowledge that you have. Like, you can't expect anything else from yourself. And to expect more from yourself that you can possibly produce is just, you're going to experience this anxiety and depressive state, which, I felt as well, trust me. And it's mostly coming from self-expectation and not living up to that. And that's what struggles and setbacks really are. And, I had a breakthrough today, actually, kind of diagnosing and kind of being aware and kind of seeing myself from an observation tower perspective, taking the emotion away. Is like, why am I not moving faster? I'm someone who can start a lot of things, and I just have a problem finishing. And like, excuse, reason, it's who I am, and I'm getting better at it. I'm putting my focus on getting better at finishing. And if you believe in personality types or not, mine is ENFP, and one of my personality trait weaknesses is not being able to finish, because we have so many interests and desires that it's really hard to see things to completion. And I absolutely identify with that, but that's not an excuse to not finish what you started. And that takes awareness, right? Going back to what I was saying earlier, something I had a breakthrough on and didn't have a breakdown and didn't give up was, why am I not moving fast enough? Like, why am I not completing things? And I had the realization today that, I said to myself, what if everything I'm doing actually pans out to what I want to do? Like, what if my book does well? Like, what if my course takes off? What if I gain more social media following? What if I'm doing a Q&A for an hour and a half. What if the things that I say I truly want actually come true? And there's always going to be consequences to those things. You're going to have less free time. You're going to feel like you're not, texting people back. That was a big thing for me. It's like, am I going to have time for the people I care about if I actually go fully all in on this? And that's just a story I'm telling myself, but that could be a real reason why people hold themselves back. And it's kind of what the upper limit theory, and I apologize for not knowing right now who came up with this, but it's reaching the ceiling and not feeling like either we deserve to be past that, or we kind of hesitate to push past that barrier to the next evolution of our lives because we fear what is on the other side of that. And right now it feels safe, it feels secure. And if you're going to be an elite performer, we're going to have to learn how to break past those barriers. And I've had this feeling before. It was at Meadowbrook my third year, and I saw what my assistant GM his life was like, and I saw what my general manager's life was like, and that was the next step for me. And I said, do I really want like this to be my life now? Like, am I willing to go all in on this? And my answer was no. And that's why after my third season, I moved back home and pursued my master's degree. And I'm now faced with this same, this cliff, as it were. Am I ready to step off the cliff and finish everything that I said I'm going to do? And do I really want the life that I have set myself up for? And the answer is 1,000% yes. I just needed to clearly identify what could be, detriments, and that could be like not being able to text people back as quickly as I want to. And that goes back to my love language is quality time. And if you haven't read Gary Chapman's The 5 Love Languages, I would highly suggest you do. It'll give you kind of self-awareness into what you value most from receiving quote-unquote love. And for me, that is quality time. And for me, right now, unfortunately, texting some people is the only quality time I really get. So if I feel like I'm lacking in that area, then I feel like I'm lacking giving my quote-unquote quality time as much as I can. I feel like I'm lacking in that. So am I willing to give that up necessarily for what I want in life? And it was an interesting sort of revelation. And really what I need to do is not, put so much pressure on myself to live up to that, and understand that, people, like, I wouldn't expect to be texted back right away every time. So why would I then project that onto someone else? And it's just those little mindset, like, realizations or breakthroughs or whatever you'd like to call it, that will spur a breakthrough rather than you staying in this kind of struggle sphere and never really getting out of it and breaking through on that. And it does take practice. It does take like mental time and energy to really sit and observe yourself. And a great book on this is called Awareness by Anthony DeMello. And I want to read an excerpt from the book. And just FYI, I would not read this at night, because if this is your first time reading it, you may be up all night questioning every belief you've ever had. But anyway, he says, before enlightenment, I used to be depressed. After enlightenment, I continue to be depressed. But there's a difference. I don't identify with it anymore. Do you know what a big difference that is? So he was able to take his self-identity away from being quote-unquote depressed. Like, I am not a depressed person. I am currently feeling the emotion of depression or sadness or something like that, but that doesn't make me a depressed human being. You are a human being. Other than that, everything else comes and goes, really. Success, wins, happiness, other than happiness, because I'll maybe get to that in another episode. But really, all these positive and negative emotions, they're really like clouds, to be completely honest. We observe them, we acknowledge their beauty, and they go about their day, and they come and go. And that's exactly what we need to treat emotions like, or otherwise we get caught up in them so much that we stay, sad or depressed. And I know this sounds very easy. I'm sure there's a better word, but I understand it is super complex, and anxiety and depression have a lot of mitigating circumstances and trauma and things like that. But to really, at the beginning of this, to understand that if we are able to improve on this and see emotions from an observation tower, and not so much internalize every little thing that we feel, we are able to adapt better, and we are able to move forward and have either breakthroughs or consistent momentum when we're not constantly dealing with our emotions, honestly. And another breakthrough I had was I was just physiologically depleted. I couldn't tell you the last time I took a complete deload week from the gym. I've been training as hard as possible 4 days a week, and my central nervous system, I just think, was shot. And that's awareness too. Are you healthy? Is there a reason you're not performing to 100% that's outside of maybe your beliefs? And really give yourself that time and energy to recoup and get back to 100%. For me, it's taking a deload week completely off from the gym and eating well and getting back to 100% so I can continue to build muscle and continue to hit my fitness goals. And sometimes it's not necessarily a step back, but in this case, it kind of is. But to take 2 steps forward, that's going to be necessary. So for you, is there anything in your life that maybe you need to take a step back to take 2 steps forward, whether it is, nutrition, your physiology, something that is not typical? Because I was eating dinner at 5:30 and wanted to go to bed. And I know I'm not lazy. I have all these things I want to do, and I don't want to be completely depleted of energy, but I was. And I needed to change something about that. So I did, and took a week off, and it's Monday, so I have 7 days off. So I'm going to be able to focus better on the work I need to do to complete. And that's kind of my focus, is this week is to complete a lot of things that I've been putting off. So I want to cover now, I've covered the philosophical, I'm trying to say physiological, and then practical, psychological, a lot of P words. But now I want to really get into the practical. And to hammer this home, because I've probably talked about it 4 times, but it is that necessary. It's to look at life as a series of events and to remove your identity from kind of the emotions that you feel, whether it is, you're struggling, going back to that quote, it's just, you're no longer identifying as depressed. You may have a depressive state, just like a dark cloud will pass, and it always does. And don't let that cloud loom over you like so many of the cartoons do. But you understand my metaphor there. 2 is to start your day with intention. And intention is really clarity. And in that first hour, and I would suggest in your last hour, is to not pick up your phone and deal with the world's problems. So many high performers feel like the world is theirs to fix, and they feel like they need to get back to everyone as soon as possible. When you do that, you are taking, the control of your life away from you, and you're giving it to other people. If you pick up your phone first thing and start replying to emails or text messages, you are now saying, these people are more important than me. And I know it sounds selfish to say this, but I'm only asking for 2 hours out of, typically, let's say 18 hours. So that's 16 hours you can give to other people if you want. But I'm asking you for, the first hour of your day and the last hour of your day, put that phone down and reconnect to yourself, and, either meditate or read or do something that's going to set you up correctly and intentional for that day. And be intentional about your day in general. Like for me, going back to last night, I set the intention of doing 5 key tasks today. And that is recording this podcast, editing one, doing the post-production for this. I have one meeting. And then I can't remember right now what this the 5th thing is, but I have it written down, so it's not an issue. And I know that going into the next day. I have full intention of what I'm going to do. I'm going to live up to it. And once I do that, I never feel like, quote unquote, never, I have my own setbacks and struggles, like I just said, but when I do that and I execute, and I do those 5 things, I feel as I'm living up to my standard. And if I consistently do that and I consistently execute, I'm never going to, with the mindset work as well, don't get me wrong, but I'm never going to, quote unquote, feel like I'm struggling if I have, set my quarterly, my monthly, my weekly, and then my daily goals. There's no logical reason why you should feel like you're struggling if you do all 4 of those things. And it's a lot of work and it's a lot of planning, but this is what I teach. I teach you how to set quarterly goals, monthly goals, weekly goals, and daily goals. And it's not just for you to have a bunch of shit on your paper. It's to remove this feeling that you're struggling or you have a setback, when if we identify what you need to do every day, you're going to feel like you're going to live up to your standard or even go above and beyond it. So a little plug for my Mindset Complete coaching. But number 4 is understand the busy seasons in your life. For me, between May and October, working at Meadowbrook, I knew that it was our busy season. We had 50 plus events, a lot of golf outings, a lot of night stuff. Between those months, I knew I was going to work and grind. And that was okay because I had the, November to March pretty much we couldn't do whatever we wanted, but it was a lot slower, and we had 3 months completely to ourselves. So it's understanding and being aware of the busy seasons in your life. The person who reached out to me with this question, Kristen, shout out to you. In the athletic training world, the sports you're working with, and I know they put a lot on you as one individual and in that realm. So just being cognizant of this is normal. Normalizing a situation will allow you to feel a little better about it. Are other people dealing with this? Do other athletic trainers feel like this? And absolutely, the answer is yes. Anytime an entrepreneur does a launch, they feel overwhelmed, shit doesn't go right. That's very normal. For an athlete, when you're in season, to feel like you're kind of losing grip on either schoolwork or things of that sort, it's normal. It's not to say that you can't do anything about it, but to normalize the situation and not feel alone in that aspect is very comforting, if you will. So 5th step fifth piece of advice is energy and attention management, and that's why I like to automate as much as I can on Sundays. And what I mean by that is I sit down with my weekly setup system and I go over, again, my quarterly, my monthly, my weekly, understanding the progress I've made, and then identifying what I need to do that week, and then divvying it out by day. And I'm in the process of figuring out which days feel best for what thing, whether it is creating content, whether it is program creation, coaching, sales, things like that, and being realistic about that. But understanding what's going to move the needle best, what I have the energy and focus for that day, and really setting the intention for each day going forward so I can have the best week possible. And then doing laundry, cleaning the apartment, meal prepping as much as possible. And I know what I'm going to wear to bed on Thursday night. I don't have to think about it. And really that allows me to focus and have more attention on the things that are going to push the needle forward within my business. And it's going to be the same with you, whether in your sport or your career or your craft. If you can leverage time to create enough time to have a dedicated time block to whatever you're doing, to have that complete focus and control over it, you're going to perform much better than if you're trying to do a million things and multitask. And that's a discussion for a whole other day, but really try and automate on one day, whether it is your off day or Saturday or Sunday. Like, take as much decisions away from you as possible, because attention fatigue is a real thing. It's been measured, and we only have so much of it, even though we can't really see it or measure it on a scale. It is a real thing. So, set out your clothes for the week, know what you're going to eat. Like in my weekly setup, I know what I'm going to eat each day, so I don't even have to think about it. And sometimes I don't feel that, like eating, today's chicken of some sort, baked potato and green beans. If I don't feel like that, I can easily swap that out for salmon or something like that. But at least I've set the intention to say, okay, I at least have this ready and I don't have to think about it. And the sixth and final step is, are you still passionate and obsessed about what you do? To throw this back on you, like there are times that I don't feel that way. And it's not a concrete yes or no, I need to give up because I don't feel obsessed that day. Like going back to being physiologically depleted, like there may be reasons outside of actual, passion and obsession that are hindering the ways you feel about what you're currently doing. But if you've eliminated all that and you really don't like what you're doing anymore, you didn't think it's all it's cracked up to be. I know that feeling. Going back to Meadowbrook again, I thought I wanted to be in golf club management, and I saw what was next, and I said, oh no. If I'm going to dedicate my life to something, it is going to be A, under my name, and B, directly helping people. And for you, are you still passionate about what you do? And that's a time to say 6 months you felt like this. Maybe it's time to evaluate what you're doing. Are you excited about the payoff that what you're doing right now, what it's ultimately going to lead to? And if you're not, and if you haven't thought that far, I think you need to seriously evaluate what you're putting your hard work and effort and dedication into, and maybe seek some other avenue. Because I've been there, I've done that, and I wouldn't give it up for the world, even though I felt at 27 now, 28 now, I shouldn't know my age. I felt behind, honestly, because, the online fitness coaches that I run their podcast and people I've connected with, they're in their, some of them are in their early mid-20s, and I just felt behind. That is like a life setback almost. And while that has aided me in catching up as far as aggressively learning everything I need to, it's not a good mindset to think that I'm behind, because every human being has their own timeline, and so do you. So to feel like you're set back is like I would seriously kind of try and reframe that as best you can in the moment to say, this is another dark cloud and it's going to pass. And really the central theme is being mindful of the present. Mindful is absolutely overused, unfortunately, but it's really being grounded in the present moment. And like I talked about, automating, that allows you to do that. So you don't have to worry about what am I going to eat tonight or things like that. You can actually focus, like I'm doing right now, recording, and I'm coming up with like different ideas I didn't have written down that are valuable because I put the mental space and focus on just doing this right now. And for you, I think that's going to be necessary for whatever you do in life. So being mindful and being present and doing everything you can to leverage that in your life is going to help you not only feel like you're not having a setback, but you're not identifying with feeling like you're quote unquote struggling. I do have an exercise for you. This is something Brendan Burchard taught me and on an online course, and people like Ariana Huffington and top CEOs. And I would provide a PDF, but just take out a piece of paper. It's going to be this simple. Last 5 years, so let's see, that's 2014. I want you to identify all of the breakthroughs that you've had in your life. And if you have a hard time kind of coming up with what you were doing in 2014, look back in your camera roll and your photos, if you have them, and kind of see what photos you were taking, and that will take you kind of back to that time. And just start writing. And it can be in bullet point, it can be in paragraph form, but really to identify like what you've had in your way, what you've been able to break through on, and what you continue to break through on. Like that's going to give you so much clarity and like perspective, and you're going to understand, wow, I've really gone through some shit, and I've broken through all of this. Like the next time I feel like I'm struggling or I have a setback, I know I'm going to break through this too, because I have proof of concept in my life, and I know that I can break through. And I think that was really important to me to sit down and do that too. And I wanted to kind of give that to you, something to kind of take home and give yourself, 10, 20, 30 minutes, and really sit down with a blank piece of paper and go back to 2014 and really kind of assess, what was I going through in life? What obstacles were in my way? And how did I break through? And what did I break through? You don't even have to answer how. And I think that's just so important to understand like the wins, because if you're an elite performer, you're a high performer, like we don't give ourselves enough credit for the things that we go through and the challenges and obstacles we get through. We're always constantly looking for that next rung on the ladder. And through this exercise, you're going to be able to understand just how many rungs you have climbed. And yes, your focus is always going to be on the next one, but it's always important to look back sometimes and to feel the just that warm feeling that you've accomplished a lot more than you give yourself credit for. So yeah, that's how I want to end this. Hope you enjoy that. Please email me at kyle@rapflex.com when you do that exercise, and share with me your breakthroughs. I'd love to hear them. And if you're interested in anything I talked about as far as the weekly setup or creating systems and habits for your life, I do believe that My Design Complete is ideal for anyone who is trying to take financial destiny into their own hands. You and me, we live with different rules, and we live in the jungle. And we need systems, strategies, tactics, and habits that are not taught by the formal education system. They just aren't. And without these, I would not have been able to go to grad school be number two in a startup and start my own freelance company, all three, and basically have free time too. So if this is something you're interested in, please apply. Either email me at kyle@rapflex.com or check out the show notes for the sales page that I will have up soon. And until next time, guys, thank you so much and have a great week.